removal. So it's a bit of an update, but also trying to share our plans for the upcoming release cycle. So basically, I think we can start with where we are right now. Um, in the Gazpacho release cycle, we did a bunch of work on this, and basically, I tried to create a filter. It looks like a gigantic URL, but you are able to see everything that we did as part of the Gazpacho release cycle. And we also included a huge release note as part of it. So at the end, what we did, so we followed the approach that other projects are doing, which consists of, instead of just dropping Eventlet, like in a single release, we are taking a multi-phase approach. This multi-phase approach consisted first of allowing Manila to be deployed with Oslo threading instead of Eventlet. And at the moment, we are not recommending it to be done in a production environment, and that has been working well. We tested it, and we also needed to introduce a couple of changes, as for example, replacement of the green pool threads, replacing them by the thread pool, replacing our thread pool thread spawning in the share manager. We use this in a couple of places, but we are now using futures instead. And we also did a couple of other replacements in the code base. So we did remove a couple of green thread sleep by time sleep, which is a movement that we've been doing for a while. We do believe that we are covered for Python Manila client, and Manila UI is actually in a good shape. But yeah, there's still some work to be done in Manila for the whole removal of it. So if you look at the change, for example, like this one, to allow running Manila services in threading mode, it will be pretty much what we are, what I was mentioning about. It will allow you to set new config option for in all of the services. So wherever you are running the Manila API, scheduler, share, and data, you would need to set this OS environment variable called OS Manila disable eventlet patching, and then Manila would read it from the container or the place that Manila is being run. And if it's set to true, then we will spawn Manila with also threading instead of eventlet. We have been trying to do a lot of testing with that, and the testing, it seems stable so far, to be precise. So this change is up for testing, and I have been also working on a rally job to test this. But in summary, the rally job is targeting some things, like, for example, it is producing the rally test results for the 2025.2 branch, which is the branch before Gazpacho. So it does a whole rally run, considering the Flamingo release. Then it will save the results, switch to do a grenade update, switch to the Gazpacho release, test it again, and then it will produce some outputs related to the performance in between the two branches. So far, we didn't see that big of a difference in terms of performance, and in fact, in some scenarios, it seemed better with native threading. But at the end, that's one of the goals that we are trying to achieve, like ensuring that the performance is stable. We still do have a lot to test yet, so we would like to introduce new tests for this. We would like to uh, cover things that might not be covered. So our rally tests, they have been introduced like years and years ago. And we would like to revisit those and ensure that we can also introduce new tests and test new features in Manila, because lots of things were introduced. So Manila, I don't know, 5 years ago looked way different than what it looks right now. So that's pretty much the target of one of the things that we'll do as part of this the upcoming release cycle. We also need to revisit our approaches for whiskey, which is another nice thing to look at. You know, like other projects, they are also covering these changes. Some projects have already migrated. But yeah, Gotham, would you like to cover future updates and our plans for 2026.2 Hibiscus and any other thing that I
Yeah.
missed while trying to do this?
No, no, thanks for covering and taking up the spot. I didn't add stuff to the Etherpad. My bad. But I
No
should
problem.
walk through it, and then as we're doing it, we can fill the gaps. Uh, so first things first, I think the biggest points you already made, which is that we are looking to get rid of Eventlet in this cycle, in the most part. So where it's possible, we've already done that. Like for example, the SSH and the thread pool logic that was there for that were being exercised in certain parts of the code base where we know that we were not really gaining much from the eventlet usage over there, and switching to threads directly made sense. So there was no compatibility layer that we added. So what made sense to add compatibility for was, while we are testing and evolving the Oslo service related code, it made sense to do what the other projects were doing, and expose that to as a configurable option, and have operators to run this, give us feedback, and also for ourselves to take this a little slowly, and make uh, pointed changes as we're doing it. So far with our testing, like you said, with the rally testing and stuff like that, we've covered what we knew a while ago, and we think that there are not a whole lot of there are not any regressions to note. But I think what will be more interesting is the new test cases, extending that, doing some more deeper testing than what we have, do that comparison and convince ourselves this was a good move, or I don't mean as much convince ourselves, in the sense that we don't want to go back. There is no eventlet future for us. So it's more around how do we tune this, and how do we make things better for operators to consume. And so that the perf scale testing will tell us those sort of things, as well as my hope. Um, what are we doing for 2026.2? You already have some points in there. So the WSGI alternatives is a big deal. So I just wanted to ask here if anybody is using the eventlet based server today, or was using it for some specific reason that we are not aware of. Because I think all the way back in the Pike release, we started supporting external whiskey servers, and it's been a long time since, right? So close to a decade. And the approach that we want to take with the eventlet removal is to actually stop supporting the internal, Manila API whiskey, binary, the whiskey mechanism to start it up and run it as a Python whiskey server. And why is that going away? Because there is no alternative to that in the Oslo land, and we don't want to write something Manila specific to preserve that. There are a lot of shortcomings over there, including the fact that modern web services today have a lot of control that you have, and configuration that's possible. And it can be consistent across different similar web services. Like, so the whole OpenStack control plan can now have the same look and feel in terms of uh, you know uh, the number of workers that you want to run, the TLS termination options, and so on. So there are way more advantages than disadvantages to moving that to that layer. If there are any disadvantages, I think part of it would be, if we had any unknown API gaps that we are not testing well enough in our gates. As you're aware, we are not testing the WSGI service, the inbuilt WSGI service at all in the DevStack gates for a while, which means that we could have broken something, and we don't know unless there's somebody that filed a bug. So that's the question: is somebody still relying on this? And If not, this is the cycle where we'll be taking it out. We deprecated it in the last cycle. We're just going to be killing it. I think Nova did this in the epoxy cycle, and some other project teams are also on track to doing it soon, if not already. Are there any concerns with that? I guess my question would become, if not for the eventlet based whiskey servers today, what are you using again? Because you have a wide range of possibilities, and we made sure to not actually have a single recommendation for a third party or an external whiskey service. In the upstream land, we test with with uWhiskey, and we know for instance, in some distributions like the Red Hat OpenStack platform, they use Mod Whiskey. We used to test with Mod Whiskey in the gate until like a couple of releases ago. And I mean, we have no reason to continue to test with multiple things, perhaps, but maybe the reasoning becomes a little more stronger now that we're recommending only the use of external whiskey services. And if there's no call out there, I mean, something to think about. The other part is the Tempest jobs, and besides the rally testing, we did a run with a couple of Tempest jobs. This was mostly the dummy driver jobs. This was for our own expediency to try to convince ourselves as we were making code changes that we were not breaking something. And so this with this release, what we could make some progress on that. We could run most of our jobs with eventlet turned off. Now that we've safely removed it from all the main pieces and given you a way to do that. And then also in this cycle, we want to consider switching the default to a native threaded mode. If we are convinced that there is no big blockers for us, and we might find and discover bugs through our testing, I think this is a good cycle to do that. And let people that are upgrading from Gazpacho to Hibiscus have that experience by default, or even Gazpacho to the iRelease would be a similar experience if you were going Slurp. We will still preserve the eventlet based implementation because we promised to do that, um, and it'll just be sitting around. We might test it with one or more Tempest tests, um, just in case we have some bugs and so on. Does that sound okay as a plan? And a more aggressive plan would be to drop everything, but we have a limitation here with respect to Slurp, that if we did remove it, we might be breaking somebody's workflow. It is mostly an internal detail for Manila, but I just wanted to make sure we're aligning with the rest of the community here. That was another thing. And today, the unit test jobs, there is a threading based job on running the unit test, but it's a non-voting job. And if we did flip the default, we would just delete that job, or actually repurpose that to make it a non-voting eventlet based job, or a voting eventlet based unit test job. I think it's an overkill. If you're having one or two functional test jobs, we should be fine. We can rationalize that through code reviews. So my approach would be to try to make it default to threading, run everything almost on the native threading mode for Oslo service, and then use test eventlet in maybe one or two functional test jobs, and keep that through this release. and worry about removal in the I release. All right. I think Anup has a question. Anup, do you want to expand?
Yeah, so when we are dropping the eventlet, what is the alternative that we are going to Gotham in all the other services, including Manila?
Yeah, so we would drop the monkey patching that Eventlet's doing. The layer with,
Okay,
I mean, the reason this is so impactful is because of that monkey patching, and technically it is done even before any of the modules are loaded. And so we would basically have a way to install Manila and remove Eventlet so that that monkey patching does not happen. And so without monkey patching, will be since we're only going to be exercising native threading mostly, and some other libraries that are built on top of the native threading. We'd not need eventlet at all in
got
the
it.
environment.
Okay, understood.
And that I think is one of the biggest advantages because the monkey patching affects a lot of different things. As developers, we're probably all annoyed with it and built our workflows around it when we are trying to do debugging, etc. Yeah, kill it with fire. Uh, so as operators, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, we tried not to break anything with it, but that's the I don't know what other operational concerns exist today. It does make things very slow, and some things very fast, right? So the idea of green threads is very enticing for us, given that it is the way it scales is different from relying on native threads. But native threads have come a long way, and multiprocessing in Python has come a long way. So if you were there in other sessions, they did a good job at explaining what all we're taking from the multiprocessing library and how we're improving. For one, the way we run the share manager service is it depends on the multiprocessing work that happened in Oslo service in the last cycle with respect to native threading. So if you're going to optimize, we're going to keep finding these things and making those optimizations possible. I think we spent some time on the rally testing, right? Did we have any questions for Carlos on that?
Is there something we need to do along with the driver, or is it just going to be tested on the default driver, basically?
Yes, if we switch the default, yes. So I think you're going to inherit the testing in your CI. And probably in case your driver is using some logic, that it would make sense to see whether that logic is changing with the backend that we choose in Oslo service. Today, I know the NetApp driver has some garbage collection threads that it spawns off. So it starts a looping call at the beginning when the driver is set up, and then it reaps some things like snapshots and QoS policies, I think.
Yep.
And that was something that we had to deal with when we were working on this threading implementation. We had to go. I mean, we didn't fix anything in the NetApp driver. We kind of had to change the way we approach the unit tests, so that we could make sure that those threads are finishing up sooner, or we don't wait until those threads to avoid polluting some common objects in the tests and so on. Um, so that did play a part, but I'm not sure there's so much usage of eventlet outside of this context. I did see some other drivers, using sleeps, and they had these sleeps based off of Eventlet, because Eventlet was patching things, so they thought, this is what we need to use. But if it was patching things anyway, you could continue to use time.sleep, and Eventlet would patch that in the environment with its implementation of sleep. So that that was also thrown in as part of this. I don't know whether the NetApp driver is affected, but I think uh, we linked it in the beginning, right? So there are some other drivers for sure.
Yeah, a safe approach, if you'd like to ensure, is you can already go ahead and set these flags into your NetApp driver job and give it a shot. That should already flag some issues that you might have or not. And I would say run the job once without the eventlet changes. Run the job again with the eventlet changes and the flags that we just mentioned. And yeah, compare the results, ensure that nothing is going to be changing or there is no performance degradation as a result of that. That's the best way to anticipate if you have any issues with in terms of performance. Yeah, I would say definitely worth spending some time on during this release, especially because like if we wait until we switch to the default and then we if there is action to be taken, then we'll possibly need the time to figure out how to fix the issues. So I would say better doing that earlier and ensuring things are fine than having surprises at the end. So yeah, if you would like to see how you can enable that, I think there is an example that I was that is part of this. There is one change to a job that I have been working on, and that change is that's this one. This would be how you do this in your DevStack configuration. You just need to set some stuff to your DevStack local RC, and that those things would be setting that variable I was just mentioning in the beginning, the OS Manila disable eventlet patching to through to all of the services and give it a shot. That would be the only changes needed, and then you would already have a good idea if this how will be the impact in the NetApp driver.
Yeah, I think I'll extend that question into the next thing that I wanted to chat about, which was root wrap. Uh, so that's probably an unknown to me. So when we were auditing, we did notice that there was quite a lot of root wrap usage, and the community across has migrated over to privsep, which is a different take on how sudo commands can be executed without much broader sudo implications that we have set up with the root wrap filters. Um, so I think we started on that work a while ago, but not everything in Manila is using privsep. Some things are, some things aren't. And there is a lot of usage of root wrap in the drivers. So if you are a driver maintainer listening to this, and you have root wrap usage in your driver, that might be something to take care of to change. And the whole reason why that matters in this space is because even if we did turn off everything eventlet, root wrap brings in eventlet, because the root wrap service depends on eventlet, and Oslo has no plans to support root wrap going forward with their native threading approach, because they believe that at this point everybody should be using privsep.
Yeah.
And
Sorry. Go ahead. Todd.
no, go ahead. I think I was going to say, I mean, having the examples, I think, Carlos, you worked on a lot of the privsep changes here in Manila. Some of them are still open, but those would be a good, sample for somebody to take a look at if they were trying to make this change in their driver.
Yes. So there are a couple of changes that I did in terms of eventlet or the root wrap to privsep migration. So those I think we got in a good shape in terms of Manila Quarter, to be honest. And the changes that are not merged yet, they have patches. I just did an update the root d file that we have all of the entries for the uh, places that we need sudo while executing. So that's one of the places we need to change, yes, and that's one of the sources of information we'll need to look into. But I think we do have a couple of examples on that. So let me link that Yeah, it's a precept migration.
I put the link on the
Oh, thank you.
Etherpad.
You beat me to the tweet. Oslo. Looking up. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, this will also cover all of the open changes, but we already have plenty merged. Like the LVM driver is completely migrated. I think generic driver is also migrated completely. So yeah, we do have a couple of other changes. Like I think we also still need to wrap up the data UTUs, which is used by the data service. The container driver also had a bunch of calls, and it was difficult to debug the job because it was failing due to other issues. We realized with the account creation, and then we were facing other different issues. So it was tough to determine what was the actual cause of the failures. And yeah, Ganesha, it seemed to be ready, but we need to revisit that and take a look at it again. But yeah, not many things still to be discovered. The there are a couple of issues with the generic driver, which we do lots of sudo, but over SSH, because the generic driver is like the share servers, they are a VM, and then sometimes we need to SSH into that VM and then run sudo commands with the within that VM. So that is one of the scenarios. It's a bit. I was a bit unsure how to do it, but I don't think it's. You're not running sudo commands in the host. You are running sudo commands in a guest in a compute node. So I don't think that would apply for the root rep to prefab migration. That was my take on it initially. I can possibly revisit that, but for most of the things that actually run sudo commands in our host, they are changed for the generic driver. There are still changes still to be completed, but yeah, these are also good examples. I can circle back to it, and also can be a good topic for me for this for working on the Hibiscus release schedule. But yeah, it's kind of like halfway done, or even more at this point.
Yeah, I think that would be the last remaining thing as well for us, in case we could get rid of all of the root wrap filters and finish the root wrap migration. Then that's also a good thing for the eventlet removal.
Awesome.
Uh, yeah, that's all we had about the progress and such. Any other concerns that folks wanted to bring up? I'm just looking at the filters file. I think it's a bigger problem than I thought it was. It's a huge number of root wrap filters that we still have. I think we haven't dropped off the ones that we did migrate to Privsep. That might be one of the reasons why
Yeah.
we're seeing a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
I can work on that and update the list as well of the filters.
Thank you. All right, from me for this.
Great. Thank you. Any other thoughts on this? Questions? Um, Anything else you'd like to add? Awesome. Yeah, I think that covers it. Thanks, Gautam. This was really great, and thank you everyone that helped with the reviews. We got this to the finish line at the very end of the Gazpacho release, but it was really important to get it out there, especially because it says LERP release, and it also gets people more time to test this, and also gets us more time to test this. So thank you everyone for the reviews. Yeah, let's switch to the next topic then. So share migration graduation, Meta.
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
Sure.
Just a minute. Okay, it's
You want help in sharing the
yeah.
screen, Madhu?
Yes. Can you share the screen? I can annotate
Yeah,
it. It's not allowing me that also.
sure, sure. I will. Yeah, I'll share it. Yeah, one second. You able to see?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So, hi everyone. Our topic is share migration graduation. So, currently, share migration APIs are marked as experimental true. So, we identified there are five share migration APIs, out of which migration start is at 2.29 version and the others are at 2.22. So, we are planning to graduate them with the graduation version as 2.96 and the current max API version as 2.95. So there will be changes in three repos: Manila, Python Manila client, and Manila Tempest plugin. So our proposal is we have identified the files also. So it will be like we will be bumping up Max API version to 2.96 in the API version request, and then we will use the min supported migration API versions, which is already present. Pre-graduation migration version 2.95 and graduation migration version has 2.96. So we will convert the existing methods to private methods and add two decorated stubs, one keeping the old experimental range and one with the 2.96, which will not have that experimental flag. And based on that, we will make the changes in the UTs as well. And similarly, for the Python Manila client, we will have a max version set to 2.96 and we'll have wraps of pre-graduation version and graduation versions. Same with in the Manila Python in the Manila Tempest plugin. So here we will be removing that header experimental extra headers too from all the methods, and will make the changes according to that. And we have identified some basic workflows also for the testing part. So it's like a normal migration, like migration start, get progress, and migration success. Then two-phase migration where we will migration the share will be online, but we will have the migration there. Then in between cancel flow or error recovery and migration with the snapshot or uh, like after migration the share is able to extend shrink. Those types of test cases we have identified, and same test we will check with the backward compatibility. So these things we have identified as the testing workflow, and normal test cases like a unit test case for each repos that we will write. So we have two things here. First is that reset task state API. So this is not just specifically to the migration workflows, but in other areas also we can use it to change the state. So like should we means bump this also to 2.96 graduation score? And second thing was that we are only doing a share graduation, not the share server migration part. So these are the two things that I wanted to uh, put up. So are there any questions or suggestions?
Yep. So on the question you had, you mentioned you asked if that reset task state should also be included as part of the uh, yeah the whole graduation process. I do think so. Yes. This reset task state is also part of the share migration in this case, and if I recall correctly, the whole task state workflow was introduced by the migration workflow in this case. So if it is also a part of the reset task state, or if reset task state is also a part of the migration workflow, then yeah, it makes total sense that we should um, also include this as part of the graduation.
Okay. So, and our version will be 2.96. That is also fine. It's available.
Yeah, it is. I do think though that it sometimes depends on the order that we merge things. So
Right.
at the end, it might change at the end of the cycle, right? So there's a chance that we will end up merging other change that was almost ready, and then you run into a merge conflict. But yeah, I think at the moment 296 is fine, but we might need to update it, and it should be something okay for us to do. The changes they will get in the order that they get reviewed and so on. So yeah, that would be my take on it.
Okay. Yeah.
So any suggestions on the testing part, Carlos, Gautam? Do we need to cover more workflows? We covered, and we will look at the templates that are running. So do you guys think any suggestions on some workflows needed when we are, graduating this shared migration stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I do think we have some good test scenarios in our CI already. So if I look at migration start, migration get progress, and all that, I feel like most of those topics they are something that are already part of the our current testing. So I would say please look at the current state of the implementation. I have a feeling that this was done, but yeah, I would say try matching whatever is there and any other scenarios that you do think it's relevant. But for this phase one migration, like migration start, migration get progress, we should already have a very good coverage in our Manila Tempest plugin. So yeah, that as soon as you drop the experimental flag, you won't stop. We won't stop testing with the experimental flag. We will only start testing without the experimental flag after a specific version, and then after we are past that version, the test suite should be exactly the same. So at the end, yeah, I think our current testing should also apply, and the exercise there would be match what we have with other scenarios that we might have missed, so that we can introduce something if necessary. I am
Sure.
currently linking these tests, looking at them right now. Yeah, and I'll link them. Uh, but yeah, so we have these tests. Yeah, I'm linking them right now.
Sure. I can see Gautam updated. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have some. I have a different take on this one. Is that there are sufficient tests for this? So to just answer your question, I don't think we should add any new tests just because we are graduating this. We
Right.
should add new tests because we're trying to continue to improve testing for this. So that's
Mhm.
different. But because I mean, graduation does not mean that we are adding any more this thing to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I get it. I mean, any suggestions on some manual testing we need to do is was the
Oh,
question. Yeah.
I see. Okay,
This we are going to cover whatever existing, right? We will run the
right.
tempest and we'll cover the testing. But do you see any sanity that should be covered by us? I
Um,
mean, we kind of share migration stuff on manual side, but the tempest should cover. I see. I also took a look at it. I
yeah.
just wanted you guys' opinion.
Probably, I think what might make sense is the boundary of things, right? So if let's say you did have version 2.96 as the
Mm-hmm.
graduation version, so you want to make sure that before 2.96 these APIs did not work without that experimental flag, because then that's the graduation done right. Otherwise, you'd be popping off the experimental flag and changing the semantics for something before that 2.96 version.
Right.
That's the only kind of testing that I think would make sense. But I want to go back to the experimental API specification itself around this. So I think the goal for us was to not double our testing and continue to
Mm.
test things that we had called experimental. Our idea was to basically just test from the graduation version and beyond from the at that point. So everything that was testing stuff before, it makes no sense to preserve that kind of testing because these experimental APIs in our mind are no longer no longer experimental, no longer supported. So if you do report some behavior that was wrong before the graduation version, we won't go make any changes for an older micro version. We will bump the micro version if it warrants it, and make changes from that new micro version and forward. So there's no reason to double our testing, is what
Right.
I'm thinking for this.
Yeah.
Um, so that said, though, I want to peel back a little bit around this whole question on experimental features, and get on my usual soapbox for this. That I mean, experimental was meant for a way for us to make quick progress, test something with the operator community, come back and say, is this good, or is this not working? So we need to make some really drastic changes and break all of this API compatibility conventions that we have. That's the reason why we had experimental versions. But for an API that was introduced in 2 dot something, like 2.22 is what Medha's noted here, that it took all these years, and we have like 2.96 as the version that we're targeting the graduation. Seems like we failed that notion. So my bigger concern is we are leaving behind a lot of things as experimental, in the hope that we will get some feedback, and that feedback, I think, the point that Maurice makes on line 66, totally awesome. That's the kind of feedback we want. We did a bad job when we wrote that API at first. We don't need to, like, support that API and API mistake going forward. So maybe we should go fix that particular API endpoint, the way it works, as we're doing this. But that's the sort of thing we should have done with experimental APIs as soon as we were convinced that this stuff isn't changing much. Um, so you see where I'm going with this, that the fact that between 2.22 and 2.96 there haven't
Yeah.
been any changes to the migration API feels like
Right.
that shouldn't have been experimental all this time. Um, so I have the same sentiment towards backup. I have the same sentiment towards share server migration. I don't like that these features are just stuck behind this experimental git. What more are we expecting? We're not planning on improving the changes. So I feel like we should have some policy built in this community about experimental features. Uh, if we think that, okay, something that we introduced as experimental didn't work out for us, it's okay to rip it out. If we think that it's not changing, we should be more deliberate about the graduation, and maybe make the whole graduation process more easier, mechanical. Anybody can pick it up, and it should be easy to review, sort of thing, right?
Makes sense.
That said, this is not about you guys. I'm glad you're picking it up.
I understand.
It's not you
Yes.
that did this problem. I'm just saying we've caused this
Yeah.
problem to ourselves.
Right. Right. I get your point.
Yeah, agreed. It's something for us, and also feedback on our process on this. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Gautam. We do need to revisit this and possibly set a timeline. Also, when we are, I think we have also the documentation for when to introduce experimental APIs. So maybe we should also add some highlights, like let's try to limit the amount of time these APIs will stay experimental. Do all the testing we can, but don't take a long time to remove the experimental headers and all that.
Yeah, completely agree. So yeah, I think this is
That
pretty good. That's all from our side. So any queries can be taken. I think yeah, we get this. I mean, noted this down, and we can see.
Yeah, any thoughts on that bug right now?
We have this. Are you guys able to see only Etherpad, or I shared bug as well, which is the one you are seeing?
No, just the Etherpad.
Yeah, just the pad.
Okay. Looks like I only shared that window. Okay. Yeah, I'm taking a look, but yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Just wondering if you folks had thought about it yet, but if you don't, that would be something that we could, if you have questions, etc., reach out to Maurice and we could discuss it at a Manila meeting
Sure,
as well.
sure. Yeah, we will. We will.
All right. Can I hijack this for the last couple of minutes and talk about the experimental APIs a little bit more?
I think we are good. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll just put this link in Veda's Etherpad itself. So our contributor doc, when we wrote out experimental APIs, pretty simple. It doesn't have a whole lot of details. It basically says we are this is why you would need an experimental API, uh, and and you decide, right, as a proposer, if you need an experimental API. And the community is a little more open to accepting experimental APIs for stuff that's still in flux. Um, so but the goal is when you're removing it, it's not we were not expecting it to take forever. We didn't spell out what kind of time it should take, which I think was is the reason things are sitting pending for a long time. We don't have a what is that, the oh, this is a maximum period. My proposal is we should set that.
Yeah,
And I don't think it's helpful to ourselves to build this kind of tech debt, and it's not helpful to our users because they end up having to unknowingly end up using these experimental features because they need them, and the community is not looking to graduate them kinds.
agreed.
So I have one question about the experimental features, right? These experiment features, are they common across Cinder and Manila as well, Gautam? Or is it just that Manila has a guideline around experimental APIs?
Oh,
Is it to
I'm,
have that?
that's a good question. I don't think Cinder ever adopted this. This was a Manila invention.
Because I know that Cinder's replication is not supported by Red Hat platform yet,
Ah, okay,
uh, because of the same similar type of reason.
okay,
So that was the reason why I asked that question, and we got that feedback in one of the conversations that we were having, where we said that since it is experimental, I don't think they will use the terminology experimental, but they
right.
just say that it is supported or not supported, something like that, and
Yeah,
what
I mean
criteria.
that
Mm,
certainly seems like something Red Hat would do, in the sense as Red Hat, they can decide what is supported or not supported on their platform, right? But I can wear my Red Hat for a bit and talk about my perspective for this for downstream consumers. Has always been never support anything experimental, because the I mean the open source community is a place for collaboration and for ideas and feedback. But once you start selling this, you're on the hook for supporting stuff. So if Red Hat supports it, it's at their own risk. And that is why, I mean, to reduce my own risk, I had that stance downstream. Um, and that's totally valid for anybody else to share across other distributions, other vendors like Red Hat. Um, so I don't know what the Cinder team thinks around those. For me, though, anything that Manila ships today as not non-experimental is something that Red Hat signs up to support, um, and the boundary is drawn with that. It's drawn at experimental versus non-experimental.
Okay,
But
got it.
Cinder folks maybe think about that differently. But that again is a Red Hat concern, less than upstream concern.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah.
But that was kind of organically what we wanted to do as well. We didn't want the Red Hats of the world coming and telling us, "Hey, you know what? We need to keep, API compatibility for this experimental feature that you introduced." And so we as the upstream community were a little flexible to introduce a new feature, and so that we wanted to share that flexibility, allow people to take some time to land something, and to design that through this operator feedback loop. um, but yeah, it's gone wrong in some sense that we've taken too long to close the gap.
Got it.
Yeah, it's one of those things try to we are actually creating more tech debt when we keep things like that, which is never a good thing. So I like the approach of trying to limit how long an API can stay experimental. And with the amount of implementation and examples we have right now, I think it should be more of a mechanical process to start being a more mechanical process to remove these experimental APIs and graduate the feature.
Yeah, because there are going to be some proposals that we may have, which we'll discuss tomorrow as part of SMS NAS feature, which may also go to that same experimental, tag, because the start of those APIs may be experimental, and then later on we may have to graduate them as well. But yeah, we can take that discussion tomorrow once we have that SMS NAS discussion.
Yep, sounds good. Uh, any other thoughts on this?
So do we want to pick up that decision making as a proposal perhaps, and follow up at a team meeting on having boundaries around experimental features? And if
So
folks have,
when we say boundaries, it is going to be time based.
I think so. I think that makes most sense to me, given that, I mean, we give folks a few releases to look at this. And if there is no further feedback, this should not be any different than any other API that we introduce, because we have at that point built up enough tech debt, that graduating it is probably the most sense to maintaining it, or ripping it out is the most sense to maintaining it, right? So we got to make a decision at that point, rather than years later.
And what is our deprecation strategy, by the way? Because I'm just asking because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because the experimental strategy should actually align to what our deprecation strategy is, right? So, for instance, couple of releases or something like that.
Yeah, so you bring up a point, which is why this whole thing is so dangerous, right? An experimental API does not have a deprecation strategy. It can go away tomorrow. It can be, I mean, so if the team decides to rip out the share migration APIs, they can basically stop working. And in the Hibiscus release, there is no promise we've made to the downstream consumers of this, which is why it's a bad thing, to have something like this live for this long, because you know that people end up using it and relying on it. And if they've not sought changes, that means that we just have to graduate it. Um, so there is no deprecation policy is the answer. There's no policy stopping us from deprecating things. There are no timelines. experimental features. For regular APIs, there is a very strict API microversioning you know process. So we support all the API microversions from 2.0 today. The policy that we can take is, in case we want to stop supporting some microversion, it and make a minimum microversion bump. That's possible, but that will go through the same kind of review that we do with anything in Manila. So we as the maintainers probably need to take a call. Is this a good time to bump the minimum microversion and remove something from its support status? Other teams have
Uh,
done this. We have not.
got it. So is there like, a process where, we announce deprecation of some of the micro versions, and
Yeah,
then, a couple of releases later, we go and remove the or bump up the minimum supported version or something like that.
yeah, probably. It'll be along those lines. I don't know what all we've documented,
Okay.
but I mean, we have definitely called out how to raise the minimum microversion in the microversion stock. Um, and as you can imagine, like microversion is additive, right? So imagine you introduce something in version 2.70. Unless you raise the minimum microversion to 2.70, that improvement that you made is going to continue to be there forever. I actually not I make that statement wrong. I meant, like, if you were to remove something, um, and you did that removal in 2.70, unless you raise the removal, the minimum microversion to 2.70, that thing can be thought of as supported forever, given that we do support microversions below 2.70 as well, except the behavior after 2.70 is different.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And for major API features, the support policy that upstream has is the same as the stable maintenance policy, which is that if you have a feature, we try to give our operators at least one cycle. Um, by one cycle, we have actually conflated that with the whole slurp update process as well, which means that if we have deprecated something in the Gaspacho release, we will not remove it until one whole upgrade cycle is over, if it is big enough. If we have deprecated something that is small, that we know that operators can acknowledge and work around, let's say it's a configuration option that's changed its name, etc. We'll try to prevent anything going wrong with the upgrade, but we'll give them a backwards compatibility for that one upgrade cycle at least. But APIs are different, so that's why bumping a minimum microversion is a huge deal. That's why we've not done it so far. We've not seen any reason to. Does that answer your question, or did that add some more confusion?
No, no, I got it. Thanks, Gautam, for explaining. I understand.
Awesome, thank you.
Awesome, thanks. Any other thoughts on this? Yeah, we are almost at the very end of this hour. First, thank you, Meta, and also Sai, for bringing this up. Really nice to see you picking this up and completing this graduation. As Gautam said, the feedback on the bumps and making the API microversions or making the APIs graduate faster is something that is for the whole community. So yeah, maybe us as a community should be revisiting that, and we do appreciate you folks helping us close that that gap. So much appreciated. Thanks for bringing this up. Thanks for preparing the Etherpad and the questions. It's really great. Any other questions? Cool. Taking silence as no. We did have one extra topic, and I think Stephen was still in the Nova room. I think he might be still, but yeah, we are at the very end of our PTG day. Thinking maybe we can reschedule this for tomorrow. I think it can try to find some time for it tomorrow. But in summary, it's about our migration from Manila client OSC plugin to OSC properly. And yeah, Stephen was asking for some reviews in the patches that he has been posting. So these are the patches he worked on. And yeah, we need to go ahead and review them. We are also proposing to work on this with outreachy. So we would like to have an outreach intern helping us complete this migration. And yeah, it might we might have something else coming up as part of this, which is the migration for the SDK. So all interesting things. But yeah, that's pretty much a summary. And Stephen was asking also if we would like to trust him with merging the changes solo after testing them, or if we should, yeah, have at least one Manila core reviewing all of the changes that he's proposing. I do trust Stephen. I think he's doing all of the testing and all that. But yeah, it would still be nice to have one of us. I would not like to block him though. So I appreciate the energy. I'll ping him if it's. I think he's still in the room, so I'll ping him if check if he's okay. But I think we briefly touched base on this, and yeah, that's time. Yeah, it's kind of a wrap for our sessions today. I do appreciate everyone participating. The discussions were really great today. We do have a lot to cover tomorrow as well, so it's a similar 3 hours of discussion, new drivers, gaps, health checks. So lots of nice things to cover tomorrow. So same time as today, from 14 UTC to 17 UTC. I hope to see you all in this room. And yeah, I appreciate all of the work and all of the great discussions we had. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. And yeah, let's get back to our days. Have a great day. Oh, Suyan. Sorry.
I think they left the room.
Yeah. Let me try to do a ping on RC. If oh, I couldn't find. I think they have